It's championship week, week 17, and we're going to go game by game, matchup by matchup, and identify the must-start players, identify the sneaky start players, and then identify the game scripts so we can get a good idea of how these games are looking like, so we can identify which players, which games are going to pop off for fantasy production and be more advantageous for our lineup decisions. Before we dig into this, make sure you tap that subscribe button right now. You need to, because I'm going to be a key resource to your research this offseason as you're getting ready for your drafts, because we cover training camp hard, we cover the rookies hard all off season, and if you're into the NFL draft, if you want to learn about dynasty fantasy football too, I'm going to be a huge resource for that. Click that button, stop missing out, but let's get this started here. And the first game we're going to be looking at here is the Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys, 52 over under, and this is a Saturday game, and I'm expecting this one to have a lot of fun stuff happening in it. I'm expecting fantasy points to be scored by both sides, by both offenses here, and I'm also expecting some drama from a football standpoint where people are going to be talking about this game at the water cooler on Monday when they get back to work. But Detroit Lions at the Dallas Cowboys, there's a lot to talk about here. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb, he's averaging 11.5 targets per game recently. Tony Pollard, can you trust him? We know he's at least going to be getting a double-digit workload when it comes to opportunities. Jake Ferguson is one of those tight ends you just start and you know he's going to be getting some goal line looks, some red zone opportunities, and you're just going to roll with it, and if he hits, he hits. On the run backs, looking at Detroit, we got Gibbs versus Monty. Gibbs has been red hot. Monty's been getting touches. Amon-Ra St. Brown, same thing as CeeDee Lamb. Sam Laporta, that rookie tight end that's been on fire this year. And tight ends are volatile. They can be up and down, but when he hits in a big way. And I think if you have Sam Laporta, unless you're just amazing at the tight end spot, you're starting him. You're starting him no matter what at this point in the game. But that being said, both these teams are very easy to peg out. Another guy to look at is Brandon Cooks. I look at him as an upside play every single week because he gets those deep targets. And if he brings one or two of those in and he's getting volume, he could be a guy that splashes it on you as well. He can be volatile, but also another wide receiver to look at when you're looking at these lineups. We also have a good over-under here to look at. Vegas is saying it's going to be a high-scoring game. Vegas is saying there's going to be opportunities for these guys to score fantasy points. Vegas is saying, hey guys, look at this game. We might be getting some production here. That's what that is indicating to us. Also, you get hit the under and be a little lower, but it's saying the implied point total is higher, which saying the odds are higher that it's going to be a little higher scoring game compared to the rest of the slate. That being said, we might get some more players here that could go bonkers in fantasy. 49ers at the Commanders, 50 over under, and a 12.5 spread. That is very interesting. They're expecting the Niners to rout the Commanders, which is probably true. And if that happens, the Commanders are going to be playing comeback mode from a huge deficit. If that's true, then that could equate to fantasy production. That's what the game script from the fundamental standpoint is saying from Vegas, and that's what the bettors are saying. And we got a higher over-under. We have two games here already in the 50s. That's rare. Starting off with these videos. Usually they're in the 30s and low 40s. 49ers at the Commanders. Looking at the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey, and I'm always going to have him in there as that must-start player because it's a good troll to the haters who just scroll by and look at the pictures. But he is getting 18 touches per game. He is getting a ton more opportunities, over 20 per game. Deebo Samuel's been hot this year. Brandon Aiyuk's been having a good year. This offense has been firing. Run backs, there's nobody safe on the Commanders. You're not trusting the running back position. Terry McLaurin's got a lot of upside. Curtis Samuel excels in tough matchups, but you're not trusting it. But if you need a YOLO play off the waiver wire and you're not worried about making that home run swing and striking out, but you really should be thinking about that with waiver wire players in general because more than likely they are going to strike out, then hit for you. But Curtis Samuel could hit in this matchup because he does have a trend of hitting in bad matchups because he gets those short targets, he gets those progression funnel targets that goes his way, and then he gets yards after the catch. That could lend to him being productive in this matchup. That's not a guarantee, but it has been a trend over these last few weeks. Cardinals at the Eagles, 48.5 over-under, and we got another thick spread. And the over-under is pretty high here. That being said, they're expecting the Eagles to rout the Cardinals, which they should. And we should also see DeAndre Swift eat in this game. The Arizona matchup is huge for running backs. Running backs get right against Arizona. Just about every running back goes off against them. And if they don't go off against them, it's the team going off in the passing game, preventing that. And then they start trickling into other running backs. That being said, you're starting your wide receivers. You're starting your Eagles. You're starting A.J. Brown. You're starting Devonta Smith. Run backs, Greg Dortch. We're still seeing Marquise Brown on the injury report. So Greg Dortch could be getting some opportunities here. And teams can throw it on the Eagles. The Eagles allow a lot of fantasy points to wide receivers per game. They're tops in the league at allowing fantasy points per game to wide receivers. James Conner's been hot recently. He's going to be getting workload and opportunities. Not the greatest matchup, but workload can equate to fantasy production. And that being said, he could score enough to allow you to get by this week. Falcons at the Bears, 38 over-under. We got our first low over-under here on the slate. Tight spread, though. And with the Bears, you never know what the game script's going to look like. With Arthur Smith, you can expect weirdness. And the Bears can be pretty weird. This could be just a weird matchup. It could hit the over just because it goes crazy, because it's weird. It could hit that under on this because it's weird. The only thing I got as a prediction here is that it's going to be weird, and I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. And then looking here, we got Bijan Robinson as the top dog here in this matchup. And you know what? He's been off and on, but he's been consistent. Look for him to get targets. Look for him to get opportunities. Drake London is another guy you want to look at, but he's not 100% trustable. He's a guy that if you have him on your lineup, you're probably having a decision with him due to this matchup. You're seeing the 30 over-under, and you're like, I don't know. But Bijan's averaging 15.52 fantasy points per game in his last 4 or 5. And then on top of that, he's had some down games. So that being said, he does have some upside. You just don't trust Arthur Smith because the downside's super down. But the run backs here, DJ Moore. DJ Moore getting some opportunities here, but you don't trust it due to the game script. But he has been consistent. But when you look at the running backs for the Bears, we got a conundrum here because Foreman's been practicing. Looks like he's going to be back. Herbert looked good last week against the Cardinals, but everybody looks good against the Cardinals. Roschon Johnson always gets sprinkled in. This could be a little bit of a committee or one of these running backs eat because that could happen. That being said, you're scared of the running backs, but you may have to play one just to play one. I do not have a preference here. Herbert versus Foreman looks like the battle to me, but Roschon is just getting sprinkled in. It looks like when you look at the workload metrics from the week-to-week standpoint. Dolphins at the Ravens, 47 over-under, and this one should be a fun game to watch. Should be fast-paced. I don't know if it's going to be high-scoring because we got some interesting defenses in this contest, but it should be fast-paced. There should be a lot going on in this game. It should be a fun one to watch. And we should be seeing some guys hitting fantasy, but the Dolphins are dealing with some injuries on offense. That being said, Tyreek Hill looks like he might be back, but he's questionable, but he's been practicing to a limited capacity. Watch out for him. Last I read, Waddle's out. Mostert and Achan's been dealing with injuries as well. Watch their status too. Run backs here. Zay Flowers been getting touches. He's been getting opportunities. He's been hitting a little bit in fantasy. Odell Beckham has kind of been on the low recently, but he's still getting that upside due to the air yards and due to the target share. And now it's Edwards versus Hill. Justice Hill, Gus Edwards. Who do you want at the running back position? With this being a more fast-paced game, Edwards may be getting more goal line looks because this game could be ignition city when it comes to the firepower in this offense. And if the Dolphins can push the pace, this could be a big game. This could be a fun one to watch. But these two defenses, too, might make things a little bit tricky all in all, when I look at this game, I think it's going to be a fun one. I think it's a game that you're going to be switching back to, keeping an eye on because things are happening. I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. I think some players are going to hit, but also you got to watch the injury report like a hawk in this one, especially with the Dolphins. I don't have any takes really with the Dolphins that are hot here, but you got to watch the injury report. If Tyreek Hill is in, that's going to be huge. That's going to help the Ravens score more fantasy points because that's going to allow the Dolphins to push the pace more. If you have Ravens, you're going to want to be rooting for Tyreek Hill to be in the lineup because that's going to push the game script more. That's going to allow the Dolphins to be more explosive, run at a faster pace, and that's going to allow more plays to be ran, giving more opportunities to Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham. You're going to be wanting Tyreek Hill to be in the lineup. Watch his injury report. Last injury report I watched was from Thursday's practice. This is early Friday. Watch the Friday's report. Maybe he's in, maybe he's out. New England Patriots at the Bills. 40 over under. It's low because we got the Patriots here. They're falling on their face. They're not looking good, and we got a huge spread. We should see the Bills rout Stephon Diggs. He's been on the low recently. He's been on a big drought, and some of these players that I have pictured up here are not always must-starts because it's week 17, it's championship week, and we can talk about the storylines a little bit more and not get confusing because your team's pretty much built. Stephon Diggs, you can count on him for targets right now, and maybe he gets right, and this is a good matchup for him to get right because they're expecting to win big on this team. James Cook, I don't think you're looking to bench him at all because he's probably one of those running backs that got you to this point, and you probably don't have many more to really have that decision about. Gabe Davis, it's Air Yard City, and usually it's Air Yard City, and he blows up in those plus matchups. He does not have a plus matchup this week. Could be a slower game script, but he's always a candidate to go off. But the run backs, you don't have many for the Patriots. You just don't. Ezekiel Elliott gets touches. He gets workload. Demario Douglas gets a lot of those short touches. Demario Douglas gets a lot of those short targets. He gets a low ADOT, though. That caps his upside. But if you're looking for a waiver wire wide receiver who's getting a 20% target share, and you're just hoping that maybe due to him getting targets, he might hit, Demario Douglas might be a guy to look at here. Saints at the Bucks, 42 over-under. I think the over-under here is fair, but we might hit the over here because the Saints are going to be looking to pass it deep on the Bucks. They're not going to be looking to ram it up the middle. This should be a faster-paced game. If the Saints can connect downfield, that means it's going to be YOLO City in the passing game with the Bucks. This could be a very fun one to watch here. This is a game you need to pay attention to. That being said, watch Chris Olave. On the injury reports, he's practicing at a limited capacity. He's got an ankle injury. If he's in, you're probably going to want to start him because of this matchup being so grand. If he's out, Rashid Shaheed might have a big game this week because he's a huge Air Yard City guy. He's going to get a couple deep balls. If you bring those in, he's going to splash. If not, he's going to be a dud. But if you're looking for a volatile guy off the waiver wire who could get you nothing or a lot of something, Rashid Shaheed could be your dude. Alvin Kamara, even though this is an optimal matchup, he's going to be using the passing game. He's going to be getting checkdowns. He's going to be getting those opportunities. If you're in PPR, you're good still. He's Alvin Kamara. You're not benching him. Run backs, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Those two are going to be heavily predicated on whether or not the Saints can fire with those downfield passes. And if they can push the game script, and if this game script gets pushed, both those wide receivers are going to be fire this week. If the Saints can't do that, the Bucks are not going to retaliate being a fast-paced firepower downfield offense, and they're going to shore things up running it with Rachaad White. That being said, we're banking on the Saints converting downfield, and if that happens, we could get firepower and fantasy from both sides of the ball here, and this could be a huge matchup here in DFS to create stacks on. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, both good wide receivers that can hit on any given week, but their upside can get tapped into if this game script goes off the rails. Rachaad White, one of the safest running backs in fantasy football. Carolina Panthers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got a low over-under. Kind of a thick spread too. Jaguars should rout this game. This is a good game for them to really add some momentum here. Travis Etienne. This is a good get-right game for running backs. A lot of running backs get right against the Panthers. Look for Travis Etienne to have a good game. Again, his route's only been in 2 matchups here, and those matchups are not optimal for running backs here. We got Baltimore and Tampa Bay. You do not run it on Tampa Bay. You throw it deep downfield on them. They're a pass funnel defense. Again, Travis Etienne's got a good matchup here for him to hit. Calvin Ridley, also a good matchup as well. But with the Panthers, game scripts get weird. We could see a slower paced game, which could allow him to not hit his upside, but he should be seeing targets nonetheless. Run backs, I'm not trusting anybody from the Panthers. I'm just not. Chuba Hubbard, watch him on the injury report, but he's getting touches, and touches could lead to fantasy points. With him, it doesn't always, but it could happen. And if you're hurting, and you're just doing what you can to get by. But if you have him and you're questioning him, you already know what you got at this point. Rams at the Giants, 43 over under, and a modest spread here. I look for the Rams to rout the Giants, though. I think the spread's kind of light here. I think it should be a little deeper, and I think the over could hit here. Due to the Rams got some firepower here, and the Giants might lay down in this matchup a little bit, even though the Rams are on the road. Just seeing that. Also, we got those quarterback changes. Could be weird. Could be getting some turnovers here. But Kyren Williams, it's a good matchup for him. Also, he's getting 27.75 opportunities per game. Touches, carries, and targets. That's a lot of workload for a running back. You're not going against that. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, they're always game. They're always scoring fantasy points. You're never really going to bench them. Cooper Kupp had his down moments earlier this season, but he's getting his opportunities as of late. Run backs, the only guy you're going to trust here from the Giants is Saquon Barkley. He's not always going to hit, but you know he's going to be getting a lot of workload in the offense. Raiders at the Colts, 42.5 over under. Decent spread here. This is one of those games that could go off the rails just because the Colts are always in those fire game scripts. The Raiders are in a lot of weird game scripts, so that's something to pay attention to. Jonathan Taylor, 19 opportunities in his first game back, so he's good to go. He's getting touches. This could be his get-right game here in the fantasy championship. Michael Pittman, because he's Michael Pittman. Then the other ancillary wide receivers you can't trust, but like a Josh Downs or somebody, you maybe just throwing them in. Run back, Zamir White. Watch Josh Jacobs. Hopefully Jacobs is out. So if you snuck into this part of the playoffs, you can use Zamir White to get you by. Zamir White is Zeus. He is Zeus. That is what they named him out of high school. He's going to be getting workload. If Jacobs is out, he's getting touches. A good guy to have in your lineup. Devontae Adams, because he's Devontae Adams. Jacoby Myers might be getting some opportunities in this matchup as well. If this game script breaks, and it could. I think it will. I think this game script could break. Could be hitting the over in this one. At least from a fantasy production standpoint, I look for a lot of these players to hit. Titans at the Texans, 44 over under. The Titans have a pass funnel defense. Look for CJ Stroud to exploit that. Look for him to throw it deep. Look for him to have a big game, especially here at home. That being said, Nico Collins, he's going to be going off this week. He should. This is the matchup for him. This is the matchup for him to go off. Noah Brown, watch for him. See if he's on the field. But Nico Collins, look for him to get deep targets. Look for him to convert well this week because this is a good matchup. Run back, same thing as always with the Titans. You can throw in Tajay Spears too because he's been getting more workload as of late and they may need to use him. But DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, we're keeping it simple. Steelers at the Seahawks, a lower over under here. But this is a game script that could get weird. I'm not going to say that it breaks in a good way. It could break in a bad way because when you think of these two teams, things could get a little bit weird because the Steelers were weird last week. The Seahawks are weird every week. That being said, DK Metcalf dealing with a back injury. That propped up middle of this week. Pay attention to him because he's on the injury report a lot but still plays. That being said, if he's out there, you're probably going to start him because he's steady. That being said, too, if he's out, Jackson Smith-Njigba goes up. His stock goes up, and you can throw it on the Steelers a little bit, and they get in these weird game scripts where other teams have to push the football. Tyler Lockett, because he's Tyler Lockett. We know about that. Kenneth Walker, because he's Kenneth Walker. Going to be getting touches, going to be getting opportunities. Run backs. George Pickens went off last week, but he's highly volatile. Deontay Johnson has been volatile, but earlier in the season, he was getting a good target share. That could revert back. Najee Harris versus Jalen Warren. Najee Harris has been limited in practice. You need to pay attention to that as well. But again, you got to pick your poison with these Steelers running backs, as we've seen it all season long. Bengals at the Chiefs, 44 over under here. We got a thick spread. But this game could be weird. This game could have fireworks. When you got the Chiefs in and Patrick Mahomes, they can move the ball around. And the Bengals due to Jake Browning being back there. And with Jamar Chase being out, we could be seeing some weird stuff as well. That being said, T. Higgins is going to be getting opportunities. He's going to be getting his time to shine, and he's got to hit because he's going to be in the market in this offseason. Joe Mixon, because he's Joe Mixon, a running back getting touches and opportunities, and you're not going to always trust it, especially in matchups like this. But again, he should at least score enough to get you by. He should be getting enough workload to allow you to have an okay week, and he's probably not going to fall on his face. Run backs, Rashee Rice. He's been hot. He's been at least scoring enough to get you by every week over like the last 5 weeks. Isiah Pacheco, watch him on the injury report. If he clears concussion protocol, he's good to go. If not, you're rolling Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And that being said, you're not going to feel great about it, but you're going to do it because he's getting touches. Chargers at the Broncos here, 37 over under. Quarterback issues on both sides of the ball here. Should be an ugly game. You're not trusting anybody. Javonte Williams with Jarrett Stidham in there and Russ out could be getting more workload, could be getting more carries. The box could be loaded up a little bit more, but you can run it on the Chargers. Cortland Sutton is an air yards guy, but that was with Russ. I don't know what the trust here. We don't know until we get a bigger sample, and that's pretty obvious to say. Run backs, maybe Austin Eckler, because you can run it on the Broncos a little bit. You're also looking at Palmer, maybe, in the passing game. It's just you're not trusting anybody in this matchup, and you're just starting them on a whim to see what happens. But the Packers at the Vikings, 43.5 over under. We also got some quarterbacks here with Jaren Hall that is coming up, and that's going to make things dicey for Justin Jefferson. I saw people moving him down the ranks, and that makes sense. But where they're having him move down to around wide receiver 20 range, you're kind of still starting him, but you're giving him like more of a wide receiver 2 standpoint. That being said, we know what we're getting into. We know he's Justin Jefferson. We know we're iffy at quarterback, and you got to do what you got to do. Same thing with Jordan Addison. Alexander Madison has been limited. See if he's out on the field. And if not, it's Ty Chandler City. Look for him to be getting some touches. He should be getting a lot more workload. But we know how these teams run. They make us scratch our heads a lot at times. Run backs here. Aaron Jones has been hot. He's been hot, been getting a lot of opportunities. Romeo Doubs has been the healthiest wide receiver of the bunch. Jaden Reed, watch for him on the injury report. Wicks looks like he's probably going to be out. Jaden Reed, though, might be out, might be in. Pay attention to him because Reed has been practicing at a limited capacity. But those are the must starts. Those are the sneaky starts. And we talked some ball on the game scripts on these matchups for championship week here on week 17. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Who's that jabroni you got to start this week to get by? Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.